What happens when members of Congress are told something so disturbing that they say the country will become unglued if people knew? And what happens when the scientists working closest to these technologies start disappearing or even end up dead under strange circumstances? Well, we're going to connect the dots that most people are afraid to look at. I'm Greg Allison. For decades, I worked in aerospace and propulsion systems, hazard and risk analysis. I've been around people working at the very edge of what is possible. And I want to tell you something up front. There are technologies and programs that do not behave like normal science programs. And let's start with what just happened. Congressman Tim Burchett recently said if the public heard what he's been briefed on, that the country would become unglued. That's not casual language. That's not politics. That's a warning. Now let's step back for a second. Members of Congress don't get briefed on fringe theories. They get briefed on classified programs. So the real question is, what are we seeing? What are they seeing? And what are they seeing that can't be fully said out loud? There are only a few categories that this could fall into: advanced human technology, foreign adversarial breakthroughs, or something not traditionally human. Now, here's where I've published a theory on this channel before. I pushed this out, that what a lot of people call UFOs may actually be classified human-built systems, breakthrough propulsion, field effects, exotic physics, but just maybe not all of it. And then we get into something even more controversial. J.D. Vance has publicly stated that what people call aliens may actually be something closer to demons. Now, before we dismiss that, let's reframe it. For most of human history, unexplained intelligences weren't called aliens. They were called spirits, entities, demons, angels. Modern language may have changed, but the phenomenon, maybe not. And now, this is where the story changes, because this isn't just about what Congress is saying. It's about who disappears after getting too close to these topics. For instance, Ning Lee, a real physicist, worked on gravitation modification concepts, not science fiction, published work. Then she disappears from public view. Her company vanishes. Her research goes dark. No clear explanation. And then we find out she got ran over in a really strange accident. So horrific that it destroyed her mind, and her husband, from the shock of it, died of a heart attack. And there's Amy Eskridge, another researcher, publicly working on breakthrough propulsion concepts. Then suddenly, she's dead. And not under normal, well-understood circumstances. I knew them both. And now, we're seeing new reports of scientists dying, engineers disappearing, generals even, managers of technology, individuals set and tied to these advanced programs are going silent. This is where you have to ask a hard question. Is it coincidence or containment? So let me analyze this in the way that I would in aerospace risk management. What you see, high-valued knowledge holders, classified environments, national security implications. You introduce a category called information hazard control. And the extreme cases, That control doesn't just involve secrecy, it involves containment of people. Now, let's connect everything. Congress says that the truth would destabilize society. Reports of non human intelligences, theories of extraterrestrial entities, scientists tied to propulsion breakthroughs disappearing. There are only a few logical conclusions for this. One, there are technologies far beyond public understanding. Two, some of them may not originate from conventional aerospace pathways. Three, the system controlling the information is willing to go very far to protect it. And I'll say this carefully. I've known people in these circles. I've seen enough to understand one thing. Not everything classified is just about weapons. Some of it's about paradigm shift in physics. So this is a question nobody wants to ask. If disclosure would unglue the country, what exactly are they trying to prevent us from realizing? That we're not alone? Or that we never understood what we were dealing with in the first place? So, in summary, Congress is signaling something major. Scientists connected to breakthrough propulsion are vanishing. The nature of the phenomenon may not be what we think. So, in the curious mind takeaway, you don't need to know what this is yet, according to the gatekeepers of the knowledge, but you should understand this. There are systems of control operating far beyond public visibility. So what to watch for? Future congressional disclosures, if they really go that deep. What will the president disclose? More accidental deaths tied to advanced research. Will we really hear about them all? And the shifts in how the media frames UAP topics. Because the next phase of this is not just a disclosure, it's controlled narrative shaping. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of these mind-blowing articles from Tim Burchett and Matt. And we're going to look at these articles. But before we go there, I want you to be aware of something. Matt Gaetz, pardon me. We're going to look at an article from him and from Tim Burchett. Your brain locks sometimes. So hang on, guys. I'm going to share those articles. Before we go there, there's other things that they don't want you to know about in our everyday society that they try to keep swept under the rug as much as is possible. And that is that we have toxic products in the chemicals we use every day. This is going to help you. I'm going to help you with something here, and you can help the channel too. Consumers are exposed to everyday product toxic chemicals. Many consumer products, including nail polish, dish soap, shampoos, hand soaps, contain dangerous chemicals linked to cancer, reproductive or developmental problems, according to a new study cited in this article. Published in Environmental Science and Technology, the research found more than 100 types of products. I said types. There's literally thousands of products used in personal care and cleaning that contain at least one harmful chemical. Many of these contain more than one toxic chemical. And I've covered this on my Green Grids channel to some great deal. So, what some of these chemicals, DEA, formaldehyde, and you find this in outdoor gear, even crayons. Remember chewing crayons when you were a kid? Beauty products, hand lotion, just all kind of stuff that can cause birth defects and many other effects. It can be fatal to the individual. So what you need to know is one of the reasons you have this is because there are just 12 companies that control over 550 different consumer brands. A lot of these are brands that you've known and trusted for a long time. They get bought out by one of these other 12 companies, and suddenly they have to change their formulations to make things cheaper, to increase shelf life, to increase the flavor, maybe for make up for that cheap product they did. You know, you put something in cheaper, you got to make up for the flavor in some other manner and the texture of it. So you'd be surprised how much formulation changes occurs in these products. And the sad thing is, a lot of these chemicals they put in aren't safe for you and I. And these companies are controlled, have controlling the interest mainly from the three big asset management companies. So it's just something else. Every time you vote for one of these guys, you're voting for the likes of BlackRock. So something to bear in mind. But I got to wait for you to switch away from that, to switch to safer products that are made in the USA from a family-owned company that are non-toxic, tested extensively for consumer safety, and even the cleaners are plant-based, all natural stuff. As I said, made here in the good old USA, supporting jobs here. And there's, many other things are not testimonies and stuff about this. It's a family-owned company, my friends. So just something you want to look at. Go into this, switchwithgreg.com, switchwithgreg.com, fill this form out, hit submit. This is my website. It just goes to me, and I share it with one other assistant who's from my community who will bring you on board and get you acquainted with this stuff. So, my friends, let's go to Tim Burchett. Here it is. This article where he said that America would become unglued if we got what he saw in his alien briefings. I mean, there's stuff he's seeing that he won't speak to. He won't talk about it. He was interviewed here, he was interviewed by Mr. Bob Finnerty. And Bob Finnerty, asked him a lot of questions about this, specifically some of the things that Matt Gaetz were saying, J.D. Vance was saying. Oh, yeah, some of those nasty products. And then Burchett surprised him. And he said, well, I'm still a member of Congress, so I really can't comment too much on what Matt was saying. Matt made some really big claims. And according to Burchett. But then Finnerty said, are you being serious or is that tongue in cheek? And Burchett confirmed that he had been completely serious. In fact, he says, I'm 100% serious. I've been briefed by just about every alphabet agency there is, and I will tell you this. If they would release the things I've seen, he said that you would stay up, like you'll stay up all night. He said, you'd be up all night worrying about or thinking about this stuff. It's that bad. You'd be up all night worried about it. See, we just need to disclose it all. I'm sick of it. He said that, I'll just tell you this. I was briefed last week on an issue, 2 weeks ago, that would have set the earth on, and he kind of changed it. This country would have become unglued. I think that if they would have heard all of what I've heard. And then he goes on that I would demand answers. And we need to, but it's never going to get, unfortunately. So he's saying we're not going to get this. It just keeps getting covered up by the people that know. And he says, and the people that know are dying or disappearing, as the case may be. And for the record, I'm not suicidal. I don't take risks. So he just wouldn't go on in some great length as to what he was saying, what he was seeing. So, my friends, isn't that really strange? But then Matt Gaetz, he said that there were alien human hybrid breeding programs. He said he had been briefed on these programs. There's something about J.D. Vance saying that he thought these were demons. That's Mr. Matt Gaetz right there. Yeah, he was a former representative from Florida. And, he said, I had someone come and brief me. There's a military uniform, worked for the United States Army, that was briefing on me the locations of hybrid breeding programs where captured aliens were breeding with humans to create some hybrid race that can engage in intergalactic communication. I don't know. That's just crazy. All right, I'm going to stop that. I could read that on and on and on. I do have some issues with that. I do have some big issues with that. Now, he apparently got briefed on something. What it was, who knows? But, to assess the likelihood of hybridizing humans and aliens, we got to begin with using current genetics technology. It is essential first to define what constitutes hybrid and how existing biotechnology functions. A genetic hybrid, in the conventional biological sense, refers to the offspring of parents from different but related species, such as a lion and a tiger producing a liger, or a horse and a donkey producing a mule. So, these explain, these examples actually require that the parents be genetically and physically compatible. However, modern genetic engineering, which focuses on molecular level manipulation rather than whole organism breeding, introduces a more abstract and complex form of hybridity. Well, there's limits to this conventional hybridization. Conventionally, for a genetic hybrid to be viable, the parent organisms must share a significant amount of genetic similarity. They must be close relatives, or at least of the same genus, and usually within the same species group, like a horse and a donkey. Though different species share a high degree of DNA sequence similarity, similar metabolic pathways and matching the number of chromosomes must exist, or they must be very close. Even with these similarities, interspecies hybrids often face significant developmental hurdles. They suffer from low viability, embryos failing to develop, physical abnormalities, and almost always infertility. Hybrids across larger taxonomic differences, such as between different families, like a dog and a cat, are biologically impossible, though through conventional means. The fundamental biological barriers, such as gamete incompatibility, immune system rejection, and major chromosomal discrepancies, are insurmountable. So, given these limitations, the concept of a hybrid takes a different meaning in the context of current genomics and genetic engineering. Technologies such as CRISPR-Cas9, somatic cell nucleus transfer, which is cloning, and the development of induced pluripotent stem cells allow for the manipulation and combination of DNA at the molecular level, bypassing some of these conventional reproductive barriers. However, the application of this technology is highly restricted. Here's what we can currently be done. There are chimerias. Modern labs frequently create chimeric organisms primarily for medical research. This involves injecting human stem cells into the host embryo of other species, like a mouse or a pig or a sheep. It's just, some genetic material. The result is an organism comprised of cells with the two different genetic makeups. Crucially, these cells exist side by side within the tissues of the animal. They are not genetically hybridized within the single nucleus. That's a big difference. This technique is used to grow human-specific tissues or organs for testing or potentially transplantation. Like growing an ear on a mouse. I've seen that once. It's like gross. But it does not produce a whole organism human hybrid. And then there's transgenesis. This refers to the insertion of a specific design gene or a small set of genes from one species into the genome of another. For instance, mice can be engineered with human genes related to specific diseases to study them. These animals are frequently mice, but they can carry a few transgenes that give them specific human-like characteristics. I've been doing some brain research with this recently. And in this molecular definition, how far divergent the two organisms are is practically irrelevant. A lab can theoretically insert a fluorescent gene from a jellyfish into a human cell. You want to glow in the dark? Or a gene from a oak tree into a bacterium. The technology manipulates the genetic code directly, meaning that as long as the recipient cell can interpret and process the genetic material, which is often a basic function across all known life. The source DNA is largely the source DNA. The source of the DNA is largely a practical concern, not a theoretical barrier to the insertion itself. So this whole problem with the hybridization, alien hybrid, the crucial issue arises when applying the logic of a hypothetical alien for any genetic insertion. Even at the molecular level, two essential criteria must be met. You got to have a universal genetic language. The hypothetical alien must share the same genetic alphabet, DNA or RNA, and most importantly, the same genetic codes. The genetic code is a set of rules that the cell uses to translate genetic information into proteins. While the four bases, A, T, C, and G, are universal on Earth, a separate origin of life could easily have evolved a different genetic code, different bases, or even entirely different biochemical structures for storing information. If the code is different, DNA from an alien would be gibberish to the human cell. And, for specific biological functions, even if the genetic language is matched, current technology is not advanced enough to build a complex whole organism hybrid. We can insert a gene from a single protein, but we cannot create a human hybrid because we lack the understanding of how hundreds or thousands of genes interact across a species to orchestrate the complex development of an embryo. This development coordination requires precise timing and compatibility across molecular pathways that are highly conserved within closely related Earth species, but would be profoundly mismatched with a true alien. In summary, a hybrid in the reproductive sense is only possible within extremely narrow genetic constraints within the same genus and species. Using current genetic engineering, we can insert specific genes across vast taxonomic distances, making the divergence of the donor and recipient irrelevant for that isolated molecular edit. It's just a slight edit. Again, make you glow in the dark, a jellyfish gene, fluorescent gene. However, the idea of creating a viable whole organism hybrid between humans and a truly alien species, separate tree of life, is not feasible with current foreseeable biotechnology. So that kind of sums it up. Now, in the Bible, there's talks of the Watchers coming down and breeding with women in Genesis and creating the giants of old, the giants of renown. There is the Nephilim. There is the, what's the word? Not Nephilim, but anyway. So there's these words, these things that are projected. I've suggested in the past that, those angels and demons referred to from the Bible are actually from our own species or something very close. Very, very close. Which invokes the idea that if all that stuff happened, there may have been a prior advanced civilization, maybe got wiped out 12,000 years ago when the big comet hit the Laurentide ice sheet and wiped out most of what was in North America and Europe. There may have been an advanced civilization. Life on Earth was brutal after that occurred. And any survivors might have went underground or underwater. And maybe they later come up to mess around with whoever emerged. And that is pure wild-eyed speculation. So what happened, we frankly don't have answers for. What might be out there, we don't have answers for. If somebody's got answers like what Matt Gaetz is reporting, what are they? How are they based? Like I said, you would think it would be the same species or very closely related species of humans. Some people suggest this is stuff from our future. Whatever the case is, some of the phenomenology makes it appear as if it's interdimensional. Maybe time shifted and there's near adjacent timelines with the human type species that are somewhat different, develop technology, and are able to come into our timeline. And I've covered in the past why I think these space aliens are not from space. That's not saying that there's not something out there. Just saying that the things that people are reporting from the evidence I've seen don't appear to be from out there. I've covered that in many videos. You can go back and look at my old videos to see what you think about that. And, tell me in the chat below what you actually think. Put it in the comment section what you really think this stuff is. Because whatever it is, whatever's going on, there's some really odd things going on. For Congress to make the kind of statements we've seen is really highly unusual, highly suggestive. The stuff that has appeared in the FLIR cameras of our jet fighters is highly suggestive. Again, could be adversarial technology from our competitors overseas, or it could be something somebody else has developed. See my video with Amy Eskridge. Well, yeah, I got her on my videos. My most popular videos, in fact, my oldest videos with Amy Eskridge. You can watch those videos. People have been piddling around with these technologies for over 100 years. Maybe somebody got lucky. Maybe the big deep black programs have gotten extremely lucky. Ashton Forbes would say so. He thinks what we're seeing is controlled by the United States, that we have some phenomenal technology. So I'd like to know what you think about it. What do you think? Let me know. So, my friends, if you want analysis that connects these dots between aerospace, classified tech, and what's really happening behind the curtains, subscribe, bang the bell, and click all. Because we're just getting started. I'm not going to Ning Lee and Amy Eskridge more in detail in the near future, and some other things. I may even have one of the authors. One of my good friends was a co-author with Ning Lee on one of her papers, and I may interview him on the channel here. So there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be covering, a lot of stuff to keep up with. In the meantime, there's one technology that we know how to use that probably won't get us pushing daisies, and that's rocket technology. Here's my hybrid rocket motor from my Cat's Prize balloon raccoon. That was something aside I was doing on the side venture. I've also worked on this space launch system vehicle, which is on the way to the moon right now. So I'll be live in a little bit with the translunar injection video. I hope to get this one posted before that event occurs. Anyway, I want to say subscribe, bang the bell, click all. Thank you all for watching, and keep looking up. And for another video, click right here. Greg out.